The worst part about betrayal isn't the pain, it's the moment you realize the people who taught you the meaning of home are the same ones who leave you bleeding on the floor. I learned that lesson on the night my entire life split cleanly in two, right after I thought I'd finally made it. My name is Ethan Parker. I'm 27 years old, born and raised in a quiet suburb outside Providence, Rhode Island, the kind of place where everyone smiles, waves, and still manages not to see you. I was the middle child in a family that looked perfect from the outside and felt like a battlefield behind closed doors. And just days before everything went wrong, I signed a 3-year, $6 million professional basketball contract, the dream I'd chased since I was a kid shooting alone on cracked asphalt courts after midnight. When I held the pen, my hands shook. Not from fear, but from the weight of everything it represented. Every ignored game. Every night I practiced while the rest of the house slept. Every time I was told basketball was a phase, a distraction, a waste of time. That signature wasn't just a contract. It was proof that I wasn't invisible anymore. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. Now back to the story. And then I made the mistake of going home. Growing up, the Parker household ran on an unspoken hierarchy. My older brother Lucas was the star-talented, praised, forgiven for everything. My younger sister Maya was the baby, protected from consequences like they were contagious. And then there was me. The extra. The one who never fit neatly into my parents' idea of success. My father valued stability, money, appearances. My mother valued obedience. I offered neither. Basketball wasn't a hobby to me, it was oxygen. But to my father, it was just noise echoing through the driveway. Every time I talked about playing professionally, he'd sigh and say, "You need a real plan, Ethan." What he meant was, not this. By 16, I stopped waiting for approval that was never coming. I worked nights at a grocery store, saved every dollar, and practiced alone in the rain when the gym lights were off. That's when Coach Ray Donovan found me leaning against his beat-up truck, watching me grind through drills while thunder cracked overhead. He didn't smile. He just said, "If you're willing to suffer for this, I'll help you make it real." He did. And I did. College ball turned into national attention. Attention turned into scouts. Scouts turned into draft boards. One championship buzzer beater later, my name was everywhere. When the Desert Hawks called with that contract, my future finally felt solid. Still, there was that ache. That stupid, hopeful part of me that wanted my family to see me not as a disappointment, not as a burden, but as someone worth being proud of. So I drove back to Rhode Island with gifts in my trunk and $6 million worth of hope beating in my chest. The house hadn't changed. Same peeling garage door. Same photos on the wall, Lucas's trophies framed like museum pieces, Maya's childhood hobbies immortalized, and one old picture of me shoved off to the side like an afterthought. My parents barely reacted when I told them the news. My father raised an eyebrow. My mother asked how long basketball careers usually lasted. Lucas smirked. But Maya, she went still, too still. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes hardened. The tension snapped when I handed out the gifts. "You think money fixes everything?" she said, standing up so fast the chair scraped the floor. "You think you can just come back here and buy respect?" I tried to explain. I tried to say I just wanted to share the moment, that I wanted them with me in it. That's when it turned ugly. Words became accusations. Accusations became shouts. And when I finally said I needed space, when I turned toward the stairs, Maya followed me. Still yelling, still angry, still close. I remember the shove more than the fall. Hands slamming into my back. The sudden absence of balance. My head striking wood. My body hitting each step like something being discarded. The last thing I heard before everything went dark was my mother's voice, cold, sharp, unmistakable. "He brought this on himself." And then there was nothing. The first sound that dragged me back from the dark wasn't a voice, it was a machine. A slow, relentless beeping that felt like it was drilling straight into my skull. My mouth tasted like metal and dust, and when I tried to swallow, pain exploded so sharply it stole my breath. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know how much time had passed. All I knew was that my body felt wrong, heavy, restrained, foreign. A rigid brace locked my neck in place. Every breath sent fire through my ribs. Panic surged before I could stop it, clawing up my chest. A nurse leaned into view, her expression calm but cautious, like she was approaching something fragile. She told me I'd been unconscious for nearly 3 days. 3 days where my body lay broken while the world kept spinning. 3 days where the people who were supposed to love me most never showed up. When the doctor came in, he didn't sugarcoat anything. Fractured ribs, a broken wrist, severe concussion, spinal trauma. Each word landed heavier than the last, stacking fear on top of fear until my chest felt hollow. "Will I play again?" I asked, my voice barely holding together. The pause before he answered was worse than the answer itself. "It's too early to know," he said carefully. "Right now, the priority is whether you'll walk without pain." Basketball wasn't just what I did. It was who I was. The thing that had kept me alive when nothing else made sense. And suddenly, it was dangling over a cliff I couldn't even see the bottom of. But fear wasn't the only thing burning inside me, because I remembered. The argument, the shove, the sickening drop, my mother's voice slicing through the chaos like a blade. This wasn't an accident, and the nurse knew it the moment I told her my sister pushed me. I saw it in her eyes, belief mixed with quiet anger. They asked if I wanted my family contacted. I laughed, a dry, broken sound that sent pain through my ribs. "They already know," I said. They did, and they still hadn't come. Later that night, the nurse returned, hesitating like she was deciding whether to say something she wasn't supposed to. Then she leaned closer and lowered her voice. "Your family came in the night you were admitted," she said. "They didn't ask about your condition. They asked for your wallet, your phone, and your keys." The room tilted. "They didn't come to see if I was alive. They came to take what they could." That truth hollowed me out in a way the injuries never could. I lay there staring at the ceiling, tears sliding sideways into my ears, realizing that even unconscious and broken, I was still just something to be used. I don't know how long I cried before the door opened again. But this time, it wasn't a nurse. It was Mark, my best friend, my anchor. The one person who had warned me not to go home. He crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside my bed, gripping my hand like he was afraid I'd disappear if he let go. His voice cracked when he said my name. I told him everything. The contract, the gifts, the jealousy, the shove, the theft. When I finished, his face went frighteningly still. "This is criminal," he said. "They assaulted you, and they robbed you. We're pressing charges." That was when the nurse confirmed something else: my bank accounts were already being drained. Purchases I didn't make. Withdrawals I never authorized. They were burning through my money while I lay there unable to sit up on my own. Mark froze everything within hours. Lawyers were called. Statements were taken. And for the first time since I woke up, I felt something other than despair, not hope. Rage. The next morning, my coach walked into the room, took one look at the brace, the bruises, the monitors, and said words that settled deep into my bones. "Those people are not your family." A detective followed soon after. He listened without interrupting. And when Mark handed him my phone still recording from the night of the fight, the detective's expression hardened. The audio captured everything. The shouting, the shove, my body hitting the stairs, my mother's voice saying I deserved it, my father telling them to take my things. By the time the detective left, promising arrests and charges, something inside me shifted. They didn't just betray me. They tried to erase me. And as I lay there, broken but breathing, one thought burned hotter than the pain, hotter than the fear, hotter than the grief. They thought this was the end of me. They were wrong. The truth reached them faster than it reached me. While I lay trapped in that hospital bed, learning how to breathe through pain and fear, the world outside didn't pause. Police reports were filed. Bank accounts were frozen. Transactions were traced. Evidence stacked up clean and cold. My phone, the one they thought they'd silenced, became the loudest voice in the room. It had recorded everything. The screaming, the shove, my body crashing down the stairs, my mother's voice saying I deserved it, my father ordering them to take my wallet and phone. There was no explaining that away. The first time I saw them again wasn't in that house. It was in a courtroom. No gifts, no forced smiles, just stiff suits, handcuffs, and eyes that couldn't hold mine for long. My sister sat straight, jaw tight, still trying to look untouchable. My parents looked smaller somehow, stripped of authority now that their lives were under oath. When the charges were read: assault, theft, Fraud. The room felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life unravel. They pleaded not guilty. All of them. Hearing those words hurt more than I expected. Even then, they wouldn't choose me. But evidence doesn't care about denial. The recordings played. The courtroom went silent except for their own voices echoing back at them. I watched my sister's face crack when the sound of my body hitting the stairs filled the room. I watched my mother lower her head when her words came back to haunt her. I watched my father go rigid when the bank records were displayed. Transaction after transaction draining my accounts while I lay unconscious. The verdict came days later. Guilty. Every count. I thought I'd feel victorious. I didn't. What I felt was finality, like a door closing forever on a version of my life that had been built on hope for people who never deserved it. Justice doesn't heal you, it just tells the truth out loud. Recovery was hell. Physical therapy stripped me down to nothing. Standing hurt. Walking hurt. Hope hurt. There were nights I stared at the ceiling wondering who I was if basketball never came back. If the one thing that saved me had been taken for good. But the game didn't abandon me. The team didn't cut me loose. They reworked my contract, gave me a role while I healed. Not out of pity but respect. Coaching. Development. Staying close to the court even when I couldn't step onto it the way I once had. Some people called it charity. They were wrong. It was survival. Slowly, painfully, I rebuilt. My body, my confidence, my sense of worth that had never existed without conditions before. I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. I stopped hoping for love from people incapable of giving it. And something strange happened in that letting go. I felt free. The night I returned to the arena not as a player, but standing on the sidelines the crowd stood. Not because of stats, not because of headlines, but because they knew. They knew what I'd lived through. They knew I was still standing. As the lights burned overhead and the noise washed over me, one thought settled deep and steady inside my chest. They broke my bones. They stole my money. They tried to erase me. But they failed, because I built a life without them. And that life didn't just survive. It won.